everyone, it is Tony. I am so excited for you to meet my awesome guest today on Women In. But before I tell you who I'm talking to, let me tell you what you're listening to. Women In is a podcast that celebrates women from all walks of life and the people who uplift them. Each episode features incredible voices from my world, sharing stories that spark inspiration, challenge the status quo, and remind us that empowering women empowers everyone. This is a bold, curious, and uncensored space where disruption is welcome, forward thinking is encouraged, and change is the goal. I'm passionate about breaking down barriers, not just for us, but for the next generation. Whether our paths cross through the Kalamazoo Wings, Mindfulness Elevated, Tony Will Coaching, or you're part of my family and friends circle, these conversations matter. Let's dive in and celebrate the power of connection, growth, and the people who are shaping our world. And this is one of them. Tahira Bellot is in February of 2023. Tahira became the director, premium services for the Las Vegas Raiders, marking her second stint in the NFL, but her first as a director in the prominent league. Prior to becoming a director with the Raiders, Tahira worked as the director of ticket sales and service for the WNBA franchise, the Dallas Wings, National Lacrosse League's Panther City LAX, Nashville Superspeedway, and the infamous Monster Mile with NASCAR, and Elevate Sports Ventures for the second installment of the XFL with the Seattle Dragons. Tahira's got quite the bio. I'm going to jump down to another part of this bio that I found so fascinating. Before joining the sports industry, Tahira was part of the top 1% of service professionals in the world as learning coach with the Ritz-Carlton. Here she trained other employees on the integrity of the brand and its world-class white glove service. This and other positions in her past have uniquely qualified her and contributed to the fast pace in which her career has grown. If you ask her, she will say it is nothing but hard work and unwavering grind mentality characteristics she attributes to being a daughter of immigrants and a first-generation American. Tahira, I'm telling you, this is, and there was a couple more paragraphs in that bio, but when I first met you, I was like, man, she's impressive. And even more so now that I've read your bio. How are you? It's so good to have you on. And you and I actually, this is kind of the inverse. We met in real life first, and now we're virtual for this podcast. So tell everyone how we came into each other's lives.
So we came into each other's lives. We were both actually speaking on a women titled Trailblazing Women in Sports at the Sports Entertainment Innovation Conference called CCon a couple months ago in July, right? But I have to say that we met in the green room and we immediately hit it off and we just started chatting.
Because we nailed it all right there. And I was just so interested in getting to know you and your story. And I'm a curious person in general, so I know I asked you a ton of questions. I'm like, oh my gosh, this woman is just phenomenal. And I'm just honored to sit next to you on that panel. So I think one of the first questions I asked you at the time, and I can't remember how we got there, but you worked in NASCAR. And I was like, NASCAR? My God, that is like so white. And if you can't see Tahira, she's not white. She's black. She's a proud black woman. And I'm like, how is that?
Right. It was interesting to say the least, right? I think one of the biggest things about it was initially I worked for a private company that was under the NASCAR umbrella. So I really wasn't a NASCAR employee. But the company that I worked for had been around for 50 years. And I honestly think I was the first black female doing anything there, honestly. So that was interesting. But, you know, I think all of those things help prepare me for where I am now and where I'll be in the future.
Many of them aren't there.
Just microaggressions.
I mean, okay, so I referenced this at the end of your bio. So I want to take us, let's go all the way back to you, because when I often talk about sports, and you probably get asked as much as I do, like, how do you break into sports? How do you like get into this dream industry? Because people rightfully so, think it's super sexy. I mean, you're at the NFL, and so I mean, especially this time of year, I mean, football, football, football. So, take us all the way back to the beginning of your career.
Right.
Sounds like you started at the Ritz, or I'm sure you had jobs before that. But take us back as far as you'd like, and then I'd love to hear your career progression, because you've worked for a lot of different sports entities. And when you get into sports, if you're willing to move and try different sports, the sky's the limit. And you're just a great example of that. So I know there's a lot in this statement slash question, so I'll let you take it from there. She's been working from the
Of course I
beginning.
had lots of jobs. I'm a Jamaican girl. Of course, we always have 3 jobs. Um, exactly. So realistically, I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. That's where I was born and raised for most of my life. And then my mom moved me to Orlando, Florida, and I was in like sports culture shock. Like people, I mean, I grew up just loving the Red Sox, the Celtics, the Bruins, the Patriots. And then I moved to Florida, and it was all about college football, which is really weird because that wasn't a thing in the Northeast. But nobody really supported the Orlando Magic. And at the time, that was the only professional team that existed there. And I remember thinking to myself, I had to be like 14. I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I know that I want to make people support the team in the city in which they lived, right? Like I was going to support the Magic, just not when they played the Celtics. And I didn't know how you were going to go about that. I just felt like the president is the one who makes these decisions. So I said, I want to be the president I want to be the first black female president of an NFL franchise. To me, it seemed like something that wasn't going to probably happen until I did it. And so I kind of set out on this path, and life happened, and you get sidetracked. And I'd done all the things: flight attending, bartending, working at the Ritz-Carlton, and everything didn't really feel fulfilling, right? But I would go to all these basketball games and things like this, and I would just watch the people in suits. I would watch the game, but I was more concerned about what does she do? I wonder how she got that job. And so finally I got a little bit of FOMO, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to finish my degree, and I'm going to pursue a job in sports. And I don't know how I even really go about it, but we'll see what happens. So I went back to school to get my sports marketing and media degree, and immediately started like volunteering and interning at anything I could that came into Orlando, whether it was, college football bowl games, or, I think one time I worked like Division I national tennis championship, like literally with a walkie-talkie reading the score from each match, each game, so that they would have the correct scores on like ESPN. So I did all of these things, and then finally I broke into getting a part-time job at Atlanta United in their inaugural season in the MLS, working in the communications department. And while I was doing that, I was still applying for full-time jobs, and I got my first full-time job, inside sales with the Atlanta Hawks in the NBA. And so that's a 1-year program designed for you to sell season tickets, basically grind, hustle, get to the top, and hopefully get promoted. And although I was one of the top sellers, it just wasn't the place for me. And so a recruiter eventually reached out to me, and I moved over to San Francisco, where I was working for the 49ers. And I was selling the seat licenses, i.e. season tickets. I was really excited. I finally made it to the NFL. This is it. I'm it here. This is how I'm going to work my way up the ladder. And then the team went, I think we were 4-12 at the time. I think it was 16 games at the time. And California is expensive, and it was a struggle. And although it's a struggle and a grind to follow your dreams, it was not one I was prepared for. And so I approached my boss and said, like, hey, listen, I got some ideas. In the NBA, we used to do these kind of prospecting events where we would bring people out, make all this pomp and circumstance so that they would feel really nice and friendly about being a season ticket member. So what if we did this? And he was like, okay. So we did an event. I called it the Combine and Sign, and it was held during the NFL Combine the same weekend, just at our facility. And we brought people out. We let them, do the whole sales pitch. And then after they purchased or didn't, they could go participate in all the same drills that the players do at the Combine. And then we had like a little sheet that had our popular players and what they got at the Combine, and just made it really cool. And we ended up, I think, making somewhere around like $150,000 that day. And the event probably cost us $2,000 to put on. So my boss said, like, what else do you have in mind? So I pitched a couple more events, and eventually these events led to an NFL best practice. And my VP and president at the time said, we think she's ready for the next step. And they were launching Elevate Sports Ventures at the time, and so I interviewed and became a director. Never had managed people before. Just went straight from account executive to director. Moved to Seattle, where I didn't know a single soul. Tears may have been dropped, I don't know. And started launching the XFL in 2020. We all know what happened in 2020, COVID. So it folded. And I had only been a director for 10 months, even though I'd had the highest revenue generating team in the XFL and I had all this great success. I was now going to be competing with all the men of the world that were also going to be looking for the same jobs when, the sports world started to open back up. And so a mentor of mine, actually my boss at Elevate, said, you know what you need to do? You need to just stay relevant. Just get a job. Keep a job. Doesn't matter where it is. It's going to just be for the time being. But this way you get the relevancy and then you're not competing as much. So I eventually got recruited to Nashville Superspeedway under the first black track president. He recruited me. And we had to launch a race for the first time in 40 years at the Speedway. We sold out, I think it was in 90 days. I launched this initiative. NASCAR has a Drive for Diversity initiative to get, more black drivers, more black fans, people of color in general. And so I took that and ran with it. I met up with some prominent black businesses in the city of Nashville, and HBCU, Tennessee State University, and we basically allowed about 300 alumni to come out to see the race in the most VIP way, right? People who the next year, if they enjoy this experience, can actually purchase these high-end tickets. That led to NASCAR giving the track the Drive for Diversity Award. They eventually bought the track. But the reality was the two presidents above me, because I reported to two people, they didn't know sales. And also, I was still green. So I needed to go somewhere where I was going to learn these things. That's how I ended up in Dallas with the WNBA. A friend of mine knew someone who was hiring over there. Lots of word of mouth things, So I ended up in the WNBA, and that was great. I love the W. I kind of miss it. I love working in women's sports. It's just something different about it. But, I have a goal. And the opportunity came for me to join the Las Vegas Raiders. And fun fact about that, I said I wanted to be the first black female president of a franchise. I'm not. However, I do work for her.
Oh my gosh, I know. You have been, I was taking notes as you were going. So I heard 4 different states, Florida, California, Washington, and Texas. Okay, so there's that. And then football, soccer, NASCAR, basketball, 4 different sports. Let me write lacrosse in there.
Yeah. Lacrosse too.
Okay, so I love this because you are a perfect example of someone, and in your bio you talked about work ethic, hustle, grind, and that is what sports is. So I'm going to ask, my next question is, out of all these sports, which one have you felt the most connected to, the most passionate about, where you feel like I want to be in this sport? Because you've had experience in 5 different ones. So as of right now at this stage in career, which one are you most, I guess, attached to? Not just from you like the sport per se, but the business side of it. Okay.
It was the WNBA. It's just, I don't know how to describe it. There's just an energy. When I was there, it was 2021 to 2023. And at that point, it started to really gain a lot of traction, right? The W has been around for a long time. People just haven't really given it the respect that it's been due. But it's just something about that, right? Like, one of the things is you want to work really hard because these women are really pursuing the same sort of passions and dreams that I was on the front office side. But most people don't know this. A rookie contract for the WNBA is $75,000.
Right.
Right? Like, most people can't even pay rent. Right? Can you imagine if you live in a very in a market like San Francisco, and that's your rookie contract. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of like, you really wanted to grind for these women. You wanted to make sure that we were filling those stands and made people, again, become really vested fans. I love that the more traction that it saw and the more popular it got. One of my favorite things was inviting my friends and their husbands to games and turning their husbands into WNBA fans, right? Like that was my favorite thing, right? Because I'm like, you watch basketball, don't you? You like good basketball? Okay, well, come on over to the game. And I was able to make really good relationships with a lot of the players on our team, whereas here at the Raiders or anywhere else that I've worked for that matter, I don't see the players, I don't meet the players, I don't know the players. It's hard to get any player to do an event, right, for season ticket members in the NFL or in the NBA. But in the W, it's really just a phone call, right? They're willing, they're able. It's just designed that way for them to be, available to the fans, and the fans really, 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 really buy in. I had so many women who were retired who were spending their retirement money on WNBA season tickets and making sure that I made sure that every experience that they had when
Yeah,
they came in that
you touch
building
on
was one that
something.
was worth,
Well, everything what you're saying
their
is
fixed
impactful,
income.
but there's a couple things. Number one, there's the front office side of this, the business side, and then there's the professional athlete side. And so there's women on both sides of this because you're a woman on the front office side, and then there's the women athlete. And so the other thing is when
Yeah.
you are at higher levels of sport, NFL, NHL, NBA, there's silos in these front offices because there are hundreds of people in these front offices. When you get down to the level of hockey where I'm at men's minor league professional hockey, there's 10 in my front office. And so we have the same exact access to players and all those relationships. We wear multiple hats. These players want to be at the community event. It is so when you're thinking about going to sports, anyone that's listening to this, Tahir and I have completely different experiences based on where we're both at right now. But if you're like, I want to be involved with more of what's going on, then you want to be at a WNBA team, or you might want to be at an AHL or an ECHL level team. Maybe, and
Correct.
you could probably speak to the XFL. I don't know if it was similar in the XFL that way too, but when you get up to those prestigious levels, it's very different on both sides. Would you? Yes.
There's a lot of red tape. And I tell people that. When I speak to college students or whoever, anyone, I always say, don't be afraid don't be afraid to work in what people consider the minor league, right? Everyone's chasing the shiny penny, the NBA, the NFL, all of these things. And when I was working in the WNBA and other sports that were considered, not, the top four or five, I was actually doing more. I got more experience. I got more hands-on opportunities. I was in meetings with our president on a regular basis. I have never been in a meeting with my team president at the NFL, ever. Right? That's just not the way that it works. And essentially, there's people above me that go into those meetings, and then they bring that information to me. And so in the WNBA, I had a seat at the table, and not only did I have a seat at the table, I had a voice at that table. Right? And so I tell people all the time, that's where you should go and get that experience and get the title. And then if you really still want to
Yes,
make it
I want to
to the
say this
majors,
again
so
so
to
everyone
speak,
hears
then now
this,
they have to pay
especially
you.
the women that listen to men and women listen to this. But first, get a seat at the table, then have a voice at the table. And because we're constantly as women talking about, I want to see at the table, I want to see at the table. Okay, we get the seat at the table, but that's phenomenal. But then we got to use that voice so we can have impact. So tell me if I'm wrong in this assertion, just because you and I both like to speak. Would you consider yourself more outspoken? Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Same.
I'm definitely the person, sorry, I'm running. I'm
So
definitely the
what
person in
has
the
been
room that's
talk
gonna say
to me
something.
about the pros and the cons of being an outspoken woman in sports? What have you run into? Where have you found success?
I think what I just said, right, is like people are always like, she's always going to have something to say, right? So I'm always having to be very careful about when I say something because I don't want my point to be moot, right? I want to make sure, and that's something, that I've experienced is having to navigate when I say something so that it's meaningful and it's impactful and it's not just being blown off as she's always got something to say. It's not that I'm always trying to play the devil's advocate, but there is a point of, especially for example, when you come into an organization and they've been doing the same thing for several years, right? And I come in and I'm like, well, what about this? How about if we just think about this? And so some of that experience has been positive and negative, right? Some of that has been, like I mentioned, people who probably don't take me seriously because they feel like I always just have something to say. And then the other side of it is some people at that table have listened, and they've listened to the fact that what I've had to say has actually been meaningful, and that I don't just speak to hear my voice, I actually speak when it's going to be impactful and something that we should really listen to. And then they've been able to say, well, what do you think, Tahira? Or bringing it back to me, or making sure that I got the opportunity to be heard. And so it's been like a gift and a curse, right? Because those times it's a gift when people know that you probably have something to say and they want to hear it. And then it's been a curse sometimes because it can fall on deaf ears when people just don't really want to hear any opposition. And sometimes I think you need opposition just to make sure that you're covering all your bases, right? Like Tony can't think of all the things. She's amazing, but she can't think of all the things. So there needs to be someone else in the room who can think about the other
things. Women like you who
and I
come
like
into
to
a
pride
front
myself on
office
being
and
that
say,
person.
hey, and you're new and you're like, hey, have you thought about this way? Oh my gosh, I love new hires, because I've been sitting in the same job for 11 years and I am not someone that thinks she knows it all. And I'm like, ooh, I want to know what they think. That's why I love it when new interns come in each year. And I'm like, listen, don't be afraid to speak up and tell us, because we're eye blind, nose blind, ear blind, especially those of us who have been here for a long time. We want to hear and see, like, talk to us, tell us. So, yeah, I agree with you. It can be really tough sometimes to be outspoken. It's like, A, we can't help it. And B, and B, there is a little inner narrator that's like, I catch myself once in a blue moon. Oh, is it too much? Or maybe I just shouldn't have said this, because really all it does is piss people off. And I'm not trying to do that. That's not my intention. But I just, and I'm such a justice seeker sometimes. I cannot, like, I can't help it.
Oh,
I can't help it. Thank you.
I can't.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, I need to be able to sleep at night.
Yes. So I run into so many challenges as a white woman, let alone, and then I stop and, because I see it so clearly, and I know others aren't quite where I'm at in this space because they're not a white woman in men's professional hockey, but I can only imagine what it would be like if I'm feeling this, what it would feel like to be a black woman or a woman of color in this space. So does that hit you some days as hard as it can hit me?
Yeah, I think so. For sure. I think a lot of times, if I'm being completely honest, a lot of times, most of the time, it's been more about being a woman. Some of the hardships that I've dealt with, right? And more so with the black women becomes the microaggressions, right? The like, oh, well, don't be so aggressive.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was assertive, not aggressive. Well, it's the same thing. It's actually not, right? And when that's coming from like the HR department, you kind of know I'm probably going to have to get out of here, right? Like nothing I ever do is going to be seen in the way that it should,
Sure.
be seen, right? I think one of the examples I can give, and out of respect, I won't say where it was, but we were setting up for one of our biggest events, and it was going to happen, and it was in a time when we were kind of social distancing, and the CEO had come to kind of view the space that I was kind of building out for my staff. And he asked me why I had it set up a certain way, and I mentioned, social distancing. And then he said, well, what about, well, now you've kind of taken up this box office space. What about if people want to, come and buy tickets? And I said, well, we're doing mobile entry only, so there's actually no physical ticket. But if someone does decide to drive up here because they're unaware, we do have a location, and I pointed it out, where we can go with our computer, keep our distance, and help them in that process. And then about 2 months later, the president came to me and said that the CEO told him that I spoke to him very aggressively, and that I tried to make him look stupid. with that answer.
Yeah, and
And I remember saying to my boss, and what did you say? So you just jumped on that
yeah,
bandwagon and let them think that I was rude and disrespectful when legitimately I was asked a question and I answered it.
no.
If he felt stupid by the response that I gave, that's not on me because I didn't say it in a way to make him feel stupid. I said it in a way to make him
Yeah.
feel confident in the decision that I had made about the way that we had set the office up. So though I think that and in that moment I had said to my boss, if I was a white woman, he would not have said that. He would have actually probably given me the respect that I deserved for having thought of all of these different things and been prepared and had answers for the CEO when he came and asked them. But because I was a black woman, I was automatically aggressive and out to make him feel some type of way. And the sad part about that was my boss didn't defend me. Instead came to me, and when it came to me weeks later, his response was like, well, how am I supposed to defend you when they say things like that? And I'm like, you know me. You're the person who hired me. You
Right.
know what my intentions are.
Right.
And also
Oh,
you're a black man.
I this word aggressive. Let's talk about this word real quick because
You
I
know?
get that I have been accused of that as well. And I try and when I get that word bugs me because it's not I'm not trying to be aggressive. I'm just passionate or I'm explaining something. It is so offensive. Like literally, I just want people the word aggressive when used with a woman is offensive. I can't say it any clearer than that. And being
Yes.
assertive is a strength. Like if a guy were
Yes.
aggressive, would we be having would this conversation even be happening? No. Because it seemed as it's like portrayed as a positive, and
No.
yeah, I do I hear you because I run into this more often than I would like. And the good news is I'm not alone. Unfortunately, you're going through it too, or have experienced it too. But as anyone listens to this, it's like really choosing the language we use, and coming into things with a curiosity mindset and not accusatory. So,
Right. Right. Because if you really took the time to get to know me, you would know you use the word passion. You would know I'm just really passionate about what I do. I'm very passionate about doing my job well, and so the intention is never negative. It's always really about the bettering the organization, bettering the business, making the team better, helping us make more money. Like that is legitimately always my goal. And if you don't want someone who's aggressively trying to make you money and doing things the right
yeah,
way, then
well,
I'm
and
probably not the right person
it's
for the
obvious because
job. And I've
you've been in
become
many
okay
different
with
front
that.
offices, many different states, many different sports, which is a huge superpower because you have a lot of experience. So I want to talk about
Yeah.
moving, just because you've literally moved, and in sports that I don't have that experience because I stumbled
Right.
into sports in my hometown. I'm born and raised in Kalamazoo, never left, and so I'm always in awe of the people that I meet throughout this industry that have moved around and tried different sports. So what has it? I mean, is that part of your personality? Like do you get antsy and you're like, I'm ready to try? Like, do you get excited to move? And are you like a super packer and you're really good at this shit?
Definitely not a
That
super packer.
is.
Although I've told everybody that when I retire, I'm starting a moving business because that is a listen. That is okay. They will find any way to get every single dime out of you. Actually, I honestly think when I was a kid, I kind of moved around a lot. Not that we were in the military or anything like that. We just moved around a lot. And so I think I went to like two elementary schools, two junior highs, two high schools, two colleges. I just got so it's not that it's something I get excited about. It's just something that I know has to be done. And I'm just one of those people. If it has to be done, it's going to get done, right? Like I'll deal with it when I'll deal with the side effects and the after effects when they happen.
Wow.
So when I moved here, that was my seventh state in 7 years. Yeah. And it's all been in pursuit of my dream, right? Like every time I had to move, I really wasn't excited about it. So when I got the job with Elevate, I'd only been in San Francisco for about a little under a year and a half. and I really wasn't ready to move. I didn't know anyone in Seattle. I legitimately cried in my VP's office when he told me that the location they were going to be sending me to was Seattle. But I knew, I was like, well, what's for me won't pass me, right? And so it's going to work itself out. And that's just always what I told myself. It will work itself out. Like if I wasn't supposed to be doing this, then there's a lesson in it and I'm going to learn it and I'm going to need it for the next step. I've just always had an unwavering faith that it was going to work itself out because this is something I wanted to do my whole life. And as these opportunities come, it became more real and more real, which only taught me that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, or these opportunities wouldn't be coming to you. Thank God, initially when I went to school, I went to an HBCU and Hampton University, and we're everywhere. And so it was really easy to kind of make friends in some of these cities that I was moving to that I didn't know anyone because someone from Hampton knew someone there. And so I make a joke and I call it referral friends. So I have a lot of friends that I got off referral and I love them. And so moving for me was just par for the course. You just had to do it. And I was very adamant when I got to these new cities that I couldn't stay in the house and be a hermit, right? Like I'm in a new work environment too, and that can be chaotic and that can be a lot to adjust to. So I have to make sure that my personal life is good so that I can feel good about my professional life and adjusting into a new space. And so I've always been very intentional about making friends and cultivating those friendships in the new city so that I could have a support system, right, that's in my same time zone because everyone I love is on the East Coast. And so it's just been, honestly, I think it's just been divine. It's just
You
something that was
literally,
written
you must be
for
in my
me,
head right
and
now because
I'm
I
just
literally
going
I
through the
wrote How Do You
motions.
Build Relationships because this is something I've noted as I get older and older. And I hear this from a lot of women that they're like, it's harder to make friends as you get older. But you already gave a tip right there with how you refer a friend. I'm loving this. And you're just openness to build new relationships. And you also strike me as someone, correct me if I'm wrong, that you love you. And I mean that in a way where you really relish your solitude too. Like you're an independent woman. Am I reading that correctly? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. I was telling my mom the other day and I was telling her how good of a job she did because I don't really remember ever a time not feeling confident. I mean, literally as a kid, she always gave me self-esteem books and all of these, books that were talking about like My Black is Beautiful and things. I mean, I'm an 80s baby. I grew up in the 90s, right? At a time where we weren't as open about a lot of things. And there was, racism as a kid and all these things. And I told her like, she just did a really great job because I don't remember ever, well, not one time in my life, not feeling like I didn't deserve, I wasn't capable, all of those things. So at the same time, she also taught me to be okay with being alone. Right, my grandmother was one of the
Yes.
first people who taught me like you don't have to run with the crowd. You're good by yourself. Right, and I remember one day I was like shuffling around, upset that my friend was making me late to something, and my grandmother looked me in my eye and she
Graham?
said, "Well, if you weren't waiting on people, you wouldn't be disappointed now, would you?" And I immediately thought, and I
Yeah.
literally from that moment on, I became the type of person that's like, I'll meet you there. Right? Like if we're going out, I'll meet you there. That way I don't have to rely on anybody. I don't have to worry about anybody. No one's making me late. Everything is completely on me. And so
Well,
just
and
from
this is
just
a good
being
segue to talk
raised,
about, because you just talked about your
it's just
grandmother
the
and your
way that I've
mother,
always been.
about the women who have shaped you into the woman that sits before me today. And obviously those are two, and please elaborate them more if you'd like. But who are these women that have made you the Tahira that sits before me right now?
Oh, I think there's plenty. So definitely my mom and my grandma. My grandma, she actually recently passed, but she was the reason I love sports. I grew up going to visit her every summer in Florida, right? Free childcare. Before when we lived in Boston, and she would have all of my
Sounds
cousins.
like
I mean, it'd be like 10 of us there all day. Definitely, probably an illegal daycare, right? So for sure, right? But like when the Summer Olympics would be on and they were in another country, she would ask me like, okay, I'm gonna get up at 3 a.m. and I'm gonna go for a walk, and then I'm gonna watch Olympics. You want to do it too? And I'm like, yeah, because I know if I'm the only one up with her, I'm gonna get the good breakfast. Everyone else is gonna get cereal, right? And so as I got older, that was our thing. We talked about basketball. I mean, she watched there wasn't anything my grandmother didn't watch. I would come home sometimes because she lived with us, and she'd be listening to the radio because she couldn't catch the game on TV, and she'd be listening to, the Orlando Magic game or something like that. One time I came home and she was calling the newspaper and asking them if they could print the score larger because she can't see it anymore. Right, and I had to tell her like they have to fit this in a certain number of pages, ma'am. So she was definitely one, and she, a woman in Jamaica, raised 5 kids on her own, sent them all the way to college, in a foreign country, like just, amazing, strong. Literally the matriarch of my family, the oldest person in my entire family. So she was number one, and then of course my mom, who just continuously instilled in me that I watched my mom be a businesswoman my whole life. And when I didn't play house, I played office. Like when I say everything about who I am now has always been who I've been is something I love, like looking back at. And then currently right now, and it has been going on since at least the last 5 or 6 years, I'm part of this group called Sisters in Sports that started in COVID when everything was kind of falling apart and we didn't really know what was going on. We didn't know when is stuff going to open up, who's hiring, how do I negotiate salaries and that sort of thing, and just support, right? Like just support in general. And so we started having these calls once a month. Here we are 6 years later still, or 5 years later, still doing it. And these women have become a huge part of not only my personal life, they're friends. I see them when I'm in their cities. They come in town. We get together usually every year during the Super Bowl. They've come to support me speaking at symposiums and other panels that I've sat on. My negotiation skills I got from them. Like when you're having a bad day or you're going through something at work and we get on that monthly call, sometimes there's tears shed, but they bring on other women like you, for example, to talk about their journey, and so we can ask them questions. And it's really always good to hear things, right? I remember when I was leaving a company, I was kind of devastated at the way that it happened, because I didn't want a reputation like that. I mean, it was one of those pull out your phones, this is going viral kind of moments, right? And I got on that call and I didn't say where I was, but because I described the situation, a woman on the call who I hadn't known knew exactly what I was talking about. And she looked me in the camera and she said, I have a girlfriend who had that same exact experience with that same exact man. And I remember feeling seen, and it helped me move on. I never had to worry about how I was going to tell that story about why I left that company ever again. Because I knew that I felt confident knowing that I'm not the only one. This isn't a me thing. This is a him thing. Right?
Yes,
I think that's my long-winded way of saying those are the women in my life who've been here for me. Now I have Tony, right? Like every time I meet someone and we click and we have a good connection, I always try to make sure that I'm cultivating that and reaching out and congratulating and celebrating them, because it comes back tenfold. And so even now, Kiava Martinez, my chief sales officer, and Sandra Douglas Morgan, our team president, if she speaks at anything and I'm in the room, I've never not heard her say my name while she's on my panel or on that stage, right? Literally. So it's those kinds of women that I have, and I'm really blessed to be
that is
able
beautiful.
to have,
I want to
have
ask,
these
I know your
women
grandma
along,
recently passed. What was her
my
name?
career journey.
Gloria. And she sounds amazing. How old was she
Gloria.
when she passed?
Everybody called her Aunt G.
96, y'all. Oh my
She was
God. What a
96.
beautiful life.
Yeah. Yeah. 96. Yeah. And one of my favorite things about, when she turned 90, I said we have to throw her a party, which I'm so glad we did because her dementia set in shortly after that. But I made it a basketball theme because she's a huge basketball fan. So everything was basketball. And then I reached out to the Orlando Magic and told them she's a huge fan. It's her 90th birthday, and they did something really amazing. And when they sent a basket over, but in the card, clearly I had told them the story, but in the card they wrote, "We too think that they should print the scores in the newspaper larger." And I think my grandmother died, like, and came back to life. she was like she eventually figured out that clearly I had told them the story, but it was just a matter of that was like I remember that being I
Yeah.
never remember seeing her smiling that large. And I remember
Yeah.
telling
Yeah.
my grandma's an old school Jamaican lady, right? Like if you ever went to a Jamaican restaurant, you think they're mean, right? They so she just smiled from ear to ear the entire day, and I love that being one of her last memories. But more importantly, I love that one of her last memories is something that I was able to do because of how where I'd gotten in my career. Because I sent the Magic that email from my 49ers email account, right? And so you know how it is in the industry. We're going to help each other out, right? They love that it was my grandmother's 90th birthday, and they also gave us tickets to the game. But I just love that one of her probably last prominent memories before her dementia really set in was something that I
Oh,
was
that's
able to do for
beautiful.
her
Yeah,
because
my
of
mom passed in
how far I'd
February of
gotten in my
Alzheimer's.
career, and that to
So,
me was just everything.
yeah. So, I mean, and as you said, like the fact that you knew, you had an idea of like her memories, starting to fade after that, because it's such a, it's shitty dementia, Alzheimer's. It is just, it's hard to watch. And, the fact that your grandma
It
made it
is.
to 96, and it doesn't sound like, correct me if I'm wrong, but
Very.
she was probably well into her 80s or early 90s before the dementia really took hold. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think she was
Yeah,
probably
like,
92-ish when we really started to notice like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah.
oh, that's
But for
awesome.
sure,
What a
definitely
cool
was still all
story.
there at
Um,
90, which I love.
so do you tell me, are you a reader? Do you like to read books or podcasts?
Thank
What are you
you.
reading? What are you listening to?
Yes, I do. So actually, I literally last
Nice.
night, because my thing on Friday nights is I come home, I pour a glass of wine, I make a bubble bath, and I read a book. That's
Okay.
what it is. So last night I just finished Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan. It's a New York Times bestseller. It's like a kind of it's a series essentially, but you don't have to read them in order, and it's about three friends. And so each book is about one of the friends and her journey through love and work and whatever. So I actually need a new book. I did join a book club here in Vegas. And so I actually need to just log on and see
Okay.
what the
Very
book
cool.
of the
And do you
month
listen to
is.
podcasts too? Well, I
But that's the
mean,
most recent thing that I was reading. Yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I watch a couple of your episodes once you sent them to me. I listen to the Pivot podcast. That's a sports one. There's a few others that I listen to. There's a real estate one that I listen to because I'm in the process of trying to buy a home. Various ones. I mean,
me
some
too.
reality TV podcasts because I love a
Wait.
good trash TV. Like, it just makes
Oh, that's so cool. Okay, so I named this podcast
there's
"Women in dot
definitely
dot
there's
dot" because
definitely a few.
originally it was about women in sports when I was kind of ideating this. And when I say ideate, I took the dog on a walk and I came back and said, "I'm going to launch this podcast." And so, and then like 30 days later, the first episode was out. And but I didn't want to make it just about sports, although it's a super important part of my life as it is yours. But I started to think about, no, I want to open this up in multiple ways. One, I want to open it up to our different identities as women, and two, I wanted to open it up not just to women but to men, in because I'm all about inclusivity, and which the word men is in women, and men came from women, and oftentimes men have a lot of important women in their lives. So, a long way around, like what do those, if you were to fill in those three dots for you, what would you be a woman in? How would you describe yourself?
Oh wow, how do I describe myself? I definitely to describe myself, I would definitely say that I don't know, like I'm just a
Yeah.
I hate to say it this way, but I just am who I am. I'm unapologetically me. And I think that that's part of the beauty of me, right? Because I don't really need to figure out how people feel about me. It's usually they
Yeah.
kind of tell me, right? I don't because I'm not sending a representative. It's just me. And so part of that, like I said, comes with that hard work and that grind and that just unwavering belief in myself. That's 100% who I am. But at the same time, to your point, like, yes, I love me, but what I also love is like cultivating relationships and building relationships with people. And I'm definitely
Yes,
somebody who never met a
100%.
stranger. We sat down in the green room, and honestly, I would say my friend Tony, right? Like,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
that person now. I'm not
Yeah.
probably going to talk to you on a plane. I'm on a plane. Just leave me alone. I want to just read my book or watch my show. But ultimately, I've never met a stranger. I'll talk to anybody anywhere, and the best thing about it is I'm always going to have something I can relate to them with. Something I've never met somebody that I couldn't relate to them on some point about something. And I think that that's one of the things that's beautiful. And I remember when we first started talking about this, and you kind of sent me an idea of what some of the questions would be. I remember looking at that one about women in, and I remember saying
Yes,
to
and
myself,
a
women
hundred
in
and some odd
anything is
episodes
essential
in,
to
no
a
one has ever
success.
answered that way. Beautiful. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, in what position can you think of that if a woman had been there, it wouldn't
Yes.
have been better, or because a woman was there, it became better, right? And I think to your point, because of what you said, men have come from women, right? And so essentially, no matter what, there's some level of
Yeah.
we have to be involved in things. I mean, we literally bring life into this world, right? And so, and everywhere that I've been, there's always been a powerful woman who was making things happen. And so, that's one of the things I was talking to someone the other day, and, we were joking about like NFL teams we don't like and things like that. And I remember saying a lot of people don't know that Charlotte Jones, Jerry Jones's daughter, the owner of the Cowboys, is actually the brainchild behind a lot of the decisions that went into making the Cowboys kind of who they are at this billion-dollar valuation, multi-billion-dollar
Yeah.
valuation. And the fact that
The
they're the only
woman
team that has
behind.
their own
Hmm.
merchandising and all of the,
Yeah.
that's
And
Charlotte,
that's not
the
surprising
daughter.
at all. Women in anything. Love it. That's phenomenal. Okay,
Not
one last question. Well, two really, but what have you changed your mind about recently?
Ooh, what have I changed my mind about recently? You know what? I'm gonna be extremely transparent. I've changed my mind recently about being, let me say this the right way. I've, because of where I work and the industry I work in, and there's still a level of being careful, but I've always been careful about, like, on my social media, the types of things that I post about that I support, especially because like sometimes season ticket members find me on social media, they follow me, and I'm careful about the things that I say because I don't want things to come across in a certain way. And of course, I never want anyone to think that anything I post is an opinion of the team that I work for. But
Yeah.
what I've changed my mind recently about is being
Hmm.
quiet about the things that I disagree with, about the state of this country and the way that people are treated and such. And that's what I think I've changed my mind about recently. And so nowadays, I'm not going to apologize for the beliefs that I have. I'm not going to apologize for saying out loud, vocalizing how it feels to be me in certain spaces. I'm not going to shy away from vocalizing about how things that are happening affect not just me, but how people should be thinking
Yes.
about how it affects
Amen
the
to
people
that.
that work in those organizations.
I love it. I love talking about what we change our mind about because I think
So
there,
I've changed
you
my
know, there
mind
is a
about
growth
that.
mindset and then there's a fixed mindset. And the reality is we're allowed to change our minds about anything at any time. And some of it requires a lot more work and hustle and grind, and some of it is I want to start liking mushrooms and I didn't like them and now I do. The actual vegetable or fungus. It doesn't have to be the big.
I'm still working on that.
They did. They did. They did reinvent
Brussels
themselves. They are
sprouts reinvented
delicious.
themselves, and I love Brussels sprouts, right?
Oh God, they were gross. You know what else was gross when I was a kid?
Not
Now
the
we're on
Brussels
this.
sprouts
My
from when we were
my
kids, I
dad
can
loved
promise you
cream of
that.
corn. Like gross. See you. You and my dad can eat that. I'm like,
Oh,
ugh.
oh, but I love that.
I'll just eat regular corn. Anyways, all right. Tahira, if people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Oh, definitely on LinkedIn. My first name, last name, Tahira Bellot. LinkedIn for sure. If you want to care about my personal beliefs and things, then I'm on Instagram at Tahira Bell.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's where I'm at. I don't do all the socials. I'm definitely an elder millennial on that side of things. But LinkedIn for sure. I do make it a conscious effort to respond to LinkedIn messages that I get, and I do
Yes.
the best at responding to all of them. And when people ask me for time, I make
Mhm.
time to talk to people because one, a lot of people did that for me. And when people
Absolutely.
didn't
You
do
and
it
I
for
share
me,
that
I
in
knew immediately
common,
that that was something that I was going to
100%
make
through
sure
and
that
through. And that
that
just
I
shows
did.
some of our core values as women leaders in this industry and in this world. So I applaud that. Thanks for being awesome and being my friend and being on here. I really appreciate it, and continue to be the outspoken, amazing woman that you
Thank you for
are. And
asking me to do
I
this. I
I am
love
here to
this.
cheer you on all the way. So if you all are looking for me, I'm not hard to find. The hockey side of my life is at kwings.com. And then everything else related to my book coming out in Q1, my TEDx, the podcast, Empower Her 2026 conference is going on sale in October. My coaching, all the things I do is at tonywill.com. And until next time.